Hi, everybody. Before we get to another great interview, we could really use your help. IMDb, which is the entertainment database, recently named the Too Opinionated podcast one of its top 100 podcasts. This is a monumental feat for this program. You know, we're a father and son team out of a small town in West Virginia, have been doing this for about 5 years. There's 15 million podcasts out there. About 40,000 of those get to the point that they're listed on IMDb. Out of those 40,000 out of the 15 million, we are ranked number 82. Something that we're just immensely proud of. We're so thankful for our listeners, our watchers, our fans. Thank you so, so much. If you would like to help us out, and we're asking for it, please. It's easy. It's really easy. It's free. If you go to IMDb, that's imdb.com, look up Too Opinionated Podcast, and just take a look at the page. That's all you have to do. I mean, you're welcome to look at the cast, look at the episodes so you can kind of see who's been on the program. Do whatever you want. But even just bringing up the page, imdb.com, Too Opinionated Podcast, bring up the page, look at it. That helps us so much. So please, if you can do anything, we would really appreciate that. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Love to have your subscription there. It's also free. And you can also check out our website, meistercon.com, where you'll find almost 700 episodes, audio and video, available on there. There's also a terrific blog from Brett, and it'll let you know anything that we have going on in studio, if we're covering a convention, if we're going on location, anything that we have going on will be on the website, meistercon.com. Thank you guys so, so much. We appreciate you so much. I can't express enough how appreciative we are of all of you. We never expected to do as well as we have, and that's all because of you. Thank you so much. Enjoy that interview. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated. I'm so excited today. I've got author Sharon Neiss-Arbess with me. So welcome, Sharon.
Hi, thanks for having me on your show.
So happy to have you. We were supposed to do this last week. I was a little under the weather, so here we are tonight. So welcome to the program. And I like to start this way, Sharon. You know, tell me a little bit about what got you into writing. Why'd you want to be a writer?
Well, I was trained as a copywriter.
Okay.
I used to work in the advertising industry many years ago, back in the 90s. And I loved it. But then I had a family with children, and I took some time off. But then I missed writing. But I didn't want to go back to the industry. It was many long hours, and it was very cutthroat. And I wanted to write on my own terms. So I always dreamed of writing a book. And I didn't know how to go about it, but I knew that I wanted to try it. So I decided to leave home, as in leave the house when the kids were at school. And I went to my local coffee shop, and I would sit for about 2-3 hours, and I started to write. And then 9 months later, I had my first book.
I mean, that's the stereotypical writer's dream, right? Is you go to the coffee shop and set up and you write out your book. And 9 months is not that long to write a book.
It's the first draft, which is the bare bones of the structure of the story. And of course, lots and lots of editing later. But that's what it took. And that's what it also took for the second and third book, about 9 months to a year. That's how long it takes for me, at least. Everyone's different.
Everybody's different. You might have a George Martin, let's say, that it might take him a decade to write a book. But then you've got like a Stephen King that he might put out several books a year.
He just keeps pumping them out. He's amazing. He's one of my mentors, actually. I mean, he doesn't know him personally, but I just look up to him.
Well, yeah, he's such a prolific, talented writer. And people think of him as horror, but he's not just that. He can write.
Yeah, beautifully too.
Yeah. Yeah.
really well.
He's really good. Don't you?
Mhm.
You mentioned the 90s. Doesn't the 90s feel like it was yesterday and also
Yes, and it
like it's been
wasn't.
30
It
years?
totally wasn't.
I
But you know
know.
what the amazing thing is? I remember being at the coffee shop and not having any distractions because there was no social media back then or no iPhones. I think I had a flip phone cell, so I would just turn it off and write.
Were
Now,
you
of
on
course,
like a word processor or a typewriter?
actually, my first book, it was pen to paper.
Love it.
It was so old school. I wonder if I even have the original copy. Anyhow, but it was old school, and then I transferred it to, I had like a computer, like a desktop.
Yep. Probably
Now
one of
I
those
go
big.
direct. I'm sorry.
Back then, it was probably one of those DOS type computers that didn't do a whole lot, but you could
It,
type.
yeah, yeah, it was. It was a big, like turquoise Mac. I remember it was huge on my desk. It was very pretty.
Yeah. Yeah. Was that first book the Me and My So-Called Friends?
It is. Yeah, that's my first book. And actually, I finished it, but it took a long time to publish it. I wasn't ready. You know, putting your artwork out there takes a lot of guts. And when I was finished, it's like, oh, I'm done. But I don't know. That means I have to publish it, and that means people are going to read it, and then they may not like it, or they may like it. So all of these emotions kind of maybe put it on the shelf for a year or two. You know what I mean? I just really wasn't ready.
I do, because honestly, in a lot of ways, the marketing is the harder part.
Yeah, it was. It was. But then I was ready, and then it just kind of sandballed or snowballed, excuse me, just snowballed into what
My
it was.
my son Brett, that does the podcast with me, he does the editing. He's a librarian. That's his
Oh,
big thing.
really?
So he's read that book, and he loves that book
Oh,
because
I'm so
it's
glad.
kind of a middle school story.
It is. So my first two books are aimed at middle school students to teach about resilience and getting through goals and getting through hard times and to find the people to support you. And the most amazing department store isn't for middle school students. It's actually, it was rated on the Manhattan Book Review for 16 plus.
Okay.
And so it's, I guess as you can call it, adult fiction. It has two strong female roles that I hope to influence readers of all ages, not just middle school. I think it's a little too mature for middle school kids. It's more
Right.
for someone who's 18 and
Where
over.
did let's start this. Where did the idea for the most amazing department store come from, and what's the book about?
Sure. So first, I'll tell you what the book is about.
Mhm.
It's about two women who face antisemitism, rejection, and sexism while they work in a department store in Montreal in the 1940s and 50s.
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you. And how I got the idea was my daughter and her friend discovered that their great grandmothers worked together in a department store in Montreal in the 1950s.
That's amazing.
I couldn't believe this. When she came home to tell me this, my heart stopped. Like, what? I couldn't stop thinking about what their conversations would have been like.
Yeah.
What their days were like, how they served people, how they were treated, what did they wear? Did they go for coffee breaks? And that conversation kept spinning around in my head for weeks. And I had no choice but to begin to write.
Yeah, I love that. It's like you have to do it.
I had to do it. I just had to.
So the book
Wild.
is actually at least based on a real department store.
It's based on Simpson's department store in Montreal.
Yeah.
And is actually loosely based on my grandmother, my paternal grandmother.
Yeah, I think that's really terrific. I love that it wasn't just an idea. it was one that kind of came to you organically
and fell on my lap.
Yeah, I love that. That's
Me too.
terrific.
I think it's a real coup.
I I grew up in the 70s, and department stores, that was kind of the place. You couldn't order anything online at that time. So going shopping at a department store, my mother would drag my brother and I along every time she went shopping, and you got kind of used to that. And some department stores would have little, restaurants in them, or hairstylists. It was like a one-stop shop. You could spend all day there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so terrific. I noticed that you were using Jewish protagonists. Was there a reason for that?
Yes, I felt it was important to bring that subject up because during that time, I wanted to shine a light on what was happening in Canada during World War II, in particular, how anti-Semitism was surfaced.
Why do you think at that period of time that was?
Well, it was during World War II,
right?
And there was
a lot of that going on, obviously.
Yes, yes.
I didn't realize Canada looked negatively at that time period.
Well, Canada was kind of quiet, and but people knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Not specifically, not in great detail, but Jews weren't treated very well. And I also wanted the most amazing department store to shine a light on what was happening in Canada during World War II.
Right.
And also to talk about antisemitism, and that this was happening during that time, and it's still happening today, and to call it out and to talk about it.
Well, it's so important to do that and have those discussions so that we can get past, those type of dark periods and come out of some of that. We battle the same type of things here in the States, and it's difficult because you're reprogramming in some cases, yourself or someone else to not have those biases. And that's not always easy. I love that you're telling the story of two women, but you're weaving in these like bigger pieces. I think
the beauty. That's the beauty of historical fiction.
Yeah.
I love historical fiction because, especially when it's entertaining, and why not mention a lipstick while you're teaching history?
Yeah, for sure. Did you get a chance to research department stores back in that time? I would think that would be, especially if you're kind of a history buff, would be kind of fun.
Yes. Well, first of all, I remember some of the things that my grandmother told me. For instance, this was actually said to her, and I actually brought this conversation into the book. The quote, "We don't normally hire Jews," was actually said to her.
Yeah, that for the time period, that does not surprise me. And
yes.
That's awful. That's terrible. So how did your grandmother handle that situation?
She still took the job. They don't normally hire Jews, but they hired her.
Well, so you've kind of created that character to off of your grandmother. So does, at that time when she was working, was she able to do anything to work against some of those stereotypes? Yeah. So let me ask it this way: is the interactions in the book between the two main women, are those things that you have come up with, kind of like this could have been going on, or are they based on some of the stuff your grandmother told you?
I created stories that I double checked with teachers and mentors to make sure that this would be valid. Situations where they weren't treated fairly. And actually things that happened to me in the 90s. Believe it or not, when I was working in advertising, I asked my boss for a Jewish holiday, and he gave me a hard time.
Yeah.
And I went to human resources to follow up. And of course, I got the time off. But I brought that into the story because these things are still happening.
Yeah, and that's the truth. I mean, in some ways we've come so far, and in some ways we still have so long to go.
Yes, there's still
Right.
lots of work to be done.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. And what a great way to do it. You're touching on the past, but bringing the ideas to the future. I think that's terrific.
Well, thank you, Michael.
Yeah, yeah. Who did the artwork for you?
That's a good question. Rebecca Eckler, my publisher, presented me with 4 different cover styles.
Yeah.
And I chose this one. I really like it because it just resembles, or just it presents 2 women outside a department store in vintage outfits.
Yeah.
I quite like it.
Well, and it completely takes you back to that 40s and 50s time period. You know, it always seemed like back then they put so much time into their appearance, even just for, you know, if you're just going out for a little bit, not actually doing anything, but just going out, they put so much time into their appearance. And that's what I think a lot of people idolize that time period, because it seems, you know, looking back, it seems kind of sophisticated.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I wrote a note to ask you why you were upset about Nordstrom's closing.
Oh, well, I was upset about Nordstrom's clothing, but I really have no comments about department stores closing because I'm just trying to find the words. I'm not a franchise retail manager expertise executive. Does that make sense?
But it does. You know, I'm guessing
really,
you're like most of us.
I really can't say anything about it because I'll find somewhere else to shop. But it is sad that it did close in Canada. It was a lovely department store. There's other ones that I'd like to visit. Love to go in and just be around the beauty, the packaging, the service, the lighting. I just appreciate all that department stores have to offer.
It was really a social place at that time.
It was a chance for women to go out and leave their homes and have a treat and have an excursion and to have some freedom and independence and some fun, because most of the women back then were working at home. They were cooking and cleaning, preparing, taking care of families. And the time that they had to go to a department store was such a treat.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like a day off.
Day off. Exactly.
Yeah. And I love that. You know, I remember it was my grandfather, but he used to go down to the local, we called it a 5 and dime store, but it was basically a department store. And he would have lunch with his World War II buddies every day. They'd meet there every day for lunch and just conversation and have it. And I always loved that, you know. And sometimes he'd take me with him and turn me loose in the little toy section while he had lunch. It was terrific. And I love the fact that, you know, it wasn't just women. Men also hung out in the department stores at one time.
See how you remember that? That is pure nostalgia.
Yeah.
And you'll never forget that. I'm sure you'll tell your children too, and they'll tell their children. It's all about the stories that they had when they went to the department store.
Yeah. Did you uncover any stories for the book that surprised you, or you're like, oh, that's a good one?
Oh, there's a lot. I have one favorite excerpt where Lilly is helping a customer.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give it away, but she is definitely being challenged. And Vivian realizes, her coworker Vivian realizes that she's having a hard time, and she stands by the sidelines and in the storeroom waiting for her and coaching her and just giving her support. And that to me is everything, because female friendships are so crucial, especially during that time when, you know, there were fewer women working. So it just to have that, for them to have each other and to support each other is just priceless.
Well, and it kept women from being isolated, which
Yes.
is very, it can lead to depression and that type of thing if you're stuck at home all the time and you don't interact. So I think that was really important to have that chance to step outside of the home, whether it's working there or just visiting for the day, and to spend time with people going through similar circumstances, things going on, and have those conversations, because that type of conversation, you never know where it's going to lead. I mean, it could actually lead to change at some point.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I really love the idea. I've always been kind of a historical fiction type of a reader. I've always enjoyed that because, I get you have to take liberties on the story, but the things that back up the story can be actually real things. Yeah, that's pretty great. That's pretty great.
Thank you.
Where can we find the book? Is it out, or when does it come out?
Well, right now it's available for pre-order on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Indigo.
Yeah.
And I don't have the book in my hands yet. My launch is in November. So, but I would imagine they'll be available within a couple of weeks, but they're available for pre-order now.
What's that like when you get that shipment of your books in?
Oh my God, it's like the birth of a baby. It's so exciting. It really is.
Do you normally do book signings?
Yeah, for the first book, I actually had a launch and a book signing. That was in like 2016. And then my second book was released during COVID. So I had a soft launch online.
Did you write it during COVID as well?
Yeah, I actually wrote this one in COVID too. And while people were making sourdough bread, I was online looking up old department stores and how people took off their makeup in 1945.
Okay. How did they?
I was being entertained.
How did they take it off?
Oh, lots of cold cream. Lots of cold cream.
Well, you actually used your pandemic time wisely. I've told my son several times. It's like, we probably should have done more with that time, because it's not going to, hopefully, not going to come back around like that again.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
Could you ask me again about what was happening in Canada during World War II? I feel that I didn't answer the question properly.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Okay. So going back, we talked a little bit about the situation in Canada during World War II, what was going on, especially with regards to Jewish women. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, to Jewish people in general. So I want to shine a light on what was happening in Canada during World War II, in particular, how antisemitism was being surfaced. So believe it or not, I got in contact with a man from Montreal who is 98 years old.
Oh, wow.
He was alive during World War II in Montreal. And I asked him, what was it like? How did you feel? And excuse me, did you get any type of harassment, or were you bothered?
Yeah.
Excuse me, water.
Oh, yeah. I know. We're switching seasons again. So that's what happened.
And believe it or not, he didn't see or experience very much. He went to school, didn't get harassed at all. So he had a different experience. It was so interesting to talk to him about it.
Yeah.
But my grandmother definitely felt I guess pointed at, and someone actually told her, or mentioned to her, we don't normally hire Jews, but they did hire her.
Yeah, well, and thank goodness that they did, but yeah, that's terrible.
It's awful. And then of course, the Jews in Montreal found out what was happening, afterwards, just like the rest of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's such a terrible time in our history. And it's interesting to me that there's still people around that were here at that time. So it wasn't that long ago. I mean, they're less and less, but there's still some here. And that's probably worth remembering that we're just a few generations away from
Yes.
being at that time.
It's important to call it out and to talk about it because it's important history that people should know about.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, the further away from it we get, the more important it is to remind ourselves of that time so that we don't fall back into that.
Exactly. And I wanted the reader to either to connect to the story in a different way or to learn something new.
Yeah. Well, that's the best books. If you can be entertained, but actually learn a little bit.
Exactly.
Well, that's the best. To me, it sounds like you spent just as much time researching as you did writing.
Yes, I did. Now, I've given pretty substantial Jewish history education.
Back at copywriting, or would you do something else?
That is a really good question. I don't know, because I'm the happiest when I'm writing.
Yeah.
I think if I wasn't writing, I'd probably be a professional organizer because I do love to organize things.
Now, see that I'm that way too.
Really?
Things out of order drive me crazy. I have to control it a little bit or I'll drive everybody else crazy.
But I'm just really lucky that I'm able to write because I just writing in a coffee shop in the wee hours of the morning is just, to me, the best thing ever. I actually get giddy walking to my local coffee shop.
I love that.
When it's dark outside.
Doing something you love.
It's the best. It's the best feeling. And then the anticipation when I open my laptop and then it's blank and there's just so much possibility. That's the best.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Has anybody read the book yet? Have you gotten any feedback yet?
Yes, I have. So the Manhattan Book Review gave it 5 stars, which is really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Not too many books coming out get that many stars.
I was really excited about that. I've had a collection of friends and colleagues who have read it. And some have actually given some reviews on Indigo because they had advanced copies on I sent them electronic copies.
Right.
So they were able to write a review on Indigo, which is a Canadian bookstore.
Take a little bit of the stress out, because if you're putting a book out, you're going to worry that anybody's going to like it. So if you're already getting good feedback.
I always have the saying that not everyone likes goat cheese. Do you like goat cheese?
I do like goat cheese, yes.
I can't stand it. And it doesn't really matter. I just don't eat it. And you do. It's okay.
It's good. I like it with grapes, if you can imagine.
Yeah, I just don't like goat cheese.
Yeah, and that's okay.
But when you put your art out there, that's what happens. And that's what I'm going to have to get used to. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that part, though, is a little stressful.
Yes, it is.
That anticipation.
But not your podcast.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's similar, though, because before we release an episode, we stress about it a little bit. Not so much now. We've been doing this for a while, but especially early on, we'd stress about it. We wanted to make it as good as possible. And honestly, when we started, they weren't that good, because we were learning. And we just kind of put it all out there and tried to learn and pick it up as quick as we could. And here we are. Mm-hmm. But if you let that type of stuff derail you, it will derail you.
Yeah, that's very good advice.
Yeah, that's pretty great. So once this is out, so it's coming out next month, are you already working on the next one? Or, what comes next?
What comes next? I don't have a novel idea in my head right now, although I do have short story ideas.
Yeah.
So I would like to get back into that, writing short stories.
Yeah, like a collection of short stories. I love those.
A collection, or to have homes in magazines.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see. But I know that the next book will come to me just like the other ones did. It'll
Yeah,
come.
I
I just
love
have to
that.
have patience.
Well, and you do some blogging, yeah, I
I
think, right?
do.
Yeah,
Did you check out my website?
I did. Yeah, it's actually really well done. I was going to ask you if you did that yourself or if somebody's helping you with
No, somebody helped me with it. I'm actually redoing it now because I have to make room for the new baby.
it.
So we're just moving some things around and taking some things out. So it's in construction right now. I mean, it's still up there, but I'm writing some new copy.
Oh, that's terrific. Because keeping up with the website is a full-time job.
Yeah, I'm sure you couldn't relate to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I've got, this terrific partner, my son, that does all the hard stuff. I just show up and, I'm a talking head, but he handles all that stuff. Thank goodness, because it would take 3 times as long if I had to do it.
Mhm.
Well, so Sharon, what do you hope that someone reading this book will get out of it?
I hope that they will learn that if something doesn't feel right, to say something.
Yeah.
Now, this is a definite hard thing to do. There will definitely be some struggle, and it's actually quite scary. But if you don't say something,
Right.
then who else will?
Yeah, maybe nobody. Which is the danger.
Yes, that's very dangerous.
Yeah. This book, to me, seems like it would make a really good TV show. Like, I would watch that. It'd be a great period piece.
That's what my husband said.
I think he's right.
Well,
Have
if
you thought
Netflix
about
is
that?
one, I'm sorry.
I said, have you thought about that at all?
Oh, yes, I have. So if Netflix is watching, just send me an offer.
Because, we love our period pieces.
Yes.
Love kind of revisiting the past and stuff. And just that, I don't think we've really had a show based in a department store where you're having your interactions and stuff mostly happening in the store. I think that'd be really interesting.
I think so too. Well, we'll
We'll
wait
make
and
some
see.
calls.
We'll wait and see.
I mean, that would be terrific. If that happens, you got to come back.
Oh, 100%.
You
Without a doubt.
also, if they make that into a show at some point, somebody does, you have to put yourself in there somewhere.
Oh, a cameo? 100%. Yes, I'm all for that.
If nothing else, just to get to dress up like they did back then.
Exactly. Just shop for shoes or for a lipstick or just being helped by Vivian or Lilly. I would love that. Yeah.
Do you spend some time, and I'm sure that you did, do you spend some time going into detail about the shopping and what's being purchased and the type of things that are offered?
Yes. Well, I mean, I didn't go in to research. I didn't go into a department store of today, of 2023. I didn't do that. I went into the department stores of yesteryear,
Right,
by going online and looking how they looked like, watching videos of people interacting, went through books, went through old advertisements. I have a collection of old magazines.
Oh yeah.
That really helped to see their style and how they dressed, how they carried themselves, and my imagination.
Yeah, I love that. I would be, and I'm sure I will be once we get the book, is I'll be right in that, because I can see it in my head, and that I love it. It's very, we talked about the nostalgia. That's what it brings up with me, because I remember those days. There's nothing out there, or very few stores like that anymore. It's kind of a dying industry.
Yeah, department stores have definitely changed.
Yeah.
And I want to bring back some nostalgia, because I think that's what people like to read.
Agreed.
It's comforting.
Very comforting. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, Sharon, thank you so much. This has been terrific. I knew it would be. I think you're such a talented author. I trust my son's judgment. He said that your middle school book was amazing. He loved that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's recommending that because he's a children's librarian. So mostly he's working with middle school and under, and he recommends that one quite a bit. It's one of his favorites. So yeah, so I know you're a talented writer. This one, I don't know if he'll read it, but I'll be reading this one.
Oh, that's great. I look forward to that.
Yeah, this has been terrific, Sharon. Couple things before we wrap up.
Yes.
anything else that you're working on that we haven't touched on, we can keep an eye out for?
No,
Yeah.
nothing.
One thing at a time.
I'm sorry.
I said one thing at a time.
One thing at a time, working on this right now and getting this out there to the public. That's what I'm working on.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's exciting. Okay, so last thing,
Yes.
where can we find your website? Where can we find you on social media?
Sure. So my website is SharonNeiss-Arbess.com. That's my full name.
Yeah.
Do you want me to spell it out?
I think I've got it here. Neiss.
And then Arbess, Arbess.
Yeah. Yeah, it came right up. When I put your name in, the website came right up.
Oh, well, that's good. So then for my social media handles, Instagram is the same, Sharon Neiss-Arbess. And Twitter, I forget what I call myself on Twitter. I'm trying to use it. It's very intimidating.
Yeah, Twitter's a tough one. Instagram, I think, is the friendliest of the social.
Yeah, and then Facebook is Sharon Neiss-Arbess.
Yeah. Facebook was terrific, like initially.
It was. It still is. I think it's still
great. It can
be.
Yeah, it can be, because it's such a great way to stay connected with people you haven't seen in a long time, or to share your photos or whatever. If it's used correctly, it's terrific. Yeah, that's great. Well, Sharon, thank you so much. And definitely you have to come back when you get that next idea. Come back and talk to us again.
For sure. Okay, so just to clear, now we're off the record.
Yeah. Well, let me wrap it up. And then
wrap it up.
Yeah. Thanks, Sharon, and definitely
thank you.
come back, please. Okay, hold on one second. What a terrific idea for a book, Sharon Neiss-Arbess. Definitely check out The Most Amazing Department Store. I love that. That's I wasn't around in the 40s and 50s, but I was definitely around in the 70s and 80s. And department stores were a big part of my childhood. I've got really fond memories, especially with my parents, my mother, my father, but especially with my grandparents. I spent a lot of time in, we used to call them 5 and dime stores, but I spent a lot of time in those with them. Really enjoyable, good, nostalgic memories. So I love that she kind of set her story in a department store. And I do think it would make a really good television show or miniseries, maybe a movie, but I feel like more TV show. So I hope you enjoyed that. The book comes out next month. Please give Sharon your support if you want to check out some of her earlier work. Her first book was Me and My So-Called Friends. It's kind of a middle school young adult book. And then her second book was called Get Up, which is a collection of short stories. I have it on very good authority that they're excellent. They're excellent. So please do your part. Help her out. Support her. I think that's a worthy endeavor. Thank you guys for tuning in again with us. We never take that for granted. We're so appreciative of everybody that listens to the podcast or watches us. If you're finding us for the first time, thank you. We would love to have your support. It's easy to do. It's free. If you're a watcher, our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. All we ask is that you hit subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, but it really does help us out. We take those subscriptions. That helps us to bring on great guests to the show, because we can say, hey, we're in 82 countries. We have this many followers. That stuff, I wish it didn't matter, but it matters. So hit subscribe. That'll help us out. If you're a listener, wherever you're listening to your podcast from, just subscribe there. Same thing. Help us out. Today, we put out episode 665. We've been doing this for almost 5 years. You can find all of those audio and video on our website, meistercon.com. If we're doing anything in studio, if we're going on location, if we're covering a convention, anything we have going on will be on the website, meistercon.com. So please check us out there. Lastly, and then I'll shut up, IMDb, which is the entertainment database, imdb.com, recently named us one of its top 100 podcasts. It's a big deal because there's 15 million plus podcasts out there. to be listed in a top 100 list from the entertainment database is a pretty big deal for us. So we're so proud of that. You can help us that way as well. If you go to imdb.com, it's free. Look up the Too Opinionated podcast and just look at the page. You don't have to do anything else. Just bring the page up. That traffic on the page helps us out. Thank you guys so much. Until next time. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. I'm once again here to ask for your support. It's been a big year for the Too Opinionated podcast. Back in February, we got to live out a dream, moderate for William Shatner here in our hometown. In May, we passed 100,000 downloads on our YouTube channel, and we followed that up in June with 50,000 downloads on the audio side. We recently posted our 600th episode, which is pretty good volume for just a father and son operation. Not too many podcasts can keep that volume up. We've been doing this now for 4.5 years, 600 plus episodes. We recently hit 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, which is a really big deal for us because we've always gotten the views, but have struggled to get people to subscribe. So that 1,000 was a big deal for us. And best of all, we were recently named one of the top podcasts on IMDb, which is the entertainment database. Those that are ahead of us, we came in at number 82. Those that are ahead of us are bigger companies like Disney, mostly Marvel, and Joe Rogan, that type of podcast. So for us, being just a small West Virginia father and son podcast, to be in the top 100 out of 15 million, it's a pretty big deal for us. So thank you for everything you've done for us so far. Got a couple little ways, though, that you can help us, and they're free, and they're really easy. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel yet, please go to YouTube. It's under MeisterCon Pod. Just hit subscribe. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. Really helps us a ton. And maybe even more important, if you could go to imdb.com, look up the Too Opinionated podcast, and just look around the page. Just having that traffic on the page really helps us out. So that's a couple easy ways that you can support us, even if you're not listening or watching all of the time. And we want you to listen and watch, because I think that our guest list, I would put up against anybody, any other show, podcast, anybody out there. I think our guest list holds up. So please check us out. You probably will find somebody that you like, or maybe somebody that you didn't know you liked, but kind of discovered them on there. There's tons of that. If you're into music, we have that too. If you like books, we've got authors on there. If you're more into what goes on behind the scenes in the entertainment world, we've got producers, directors, video artists, anything you can think of that happens behind the scenes, we've had them on the show. So definitely check us out. Thank you guys so much. Until next time. Bye, everybody.